Hey guys, my name's Matt, I love hockey, and today I'm going to be doing an NHL season predictions video. I'm going to start off by talking about the Atlantic Division, and this is just where I think teams will finish based off of the offseason and how they've played in the preseason so far, along with how they played last year and things like that. So starting us off in the Atlantic Division, I have Ottawa finishing 8th. They went 2-4 in the preseason. They had a hard year last year, and they lost Erik Karlsson, so they're more than likely going to have a pretty rough season. There's not a whole lot of reasoning behind this other than last year's performance and their loss of their best player, and they lost Mike Hoffman, who was a pretty solid player. Then in 7th, you have the Montreal Canadiens, who went 4-3 in the preseason. They had a difficult offseason, well, interesting offseason, I should say. They traded Galchenyuk to the Coyotes for Max Domi. Max Pacioretty was traded for Tom Tatar and Nick Suzuki, who most likely won't play this year. Nick Suzuki won't, or at least not regularly. Tatar wasn't great for the Golden Knights last year. He was good, however, for the Red Wings, so we'll see how he fits in to the Montreal lineup. Then you also have Shea Weber, who's going to be out a decent amount of the year with an injury, and Carey Price is coming back from an injury. So there's a lot of things that are up in the air. Too many things for me to put them much higher than this. They could end up 6th, but I can't really see them finishing higher than that. In 6th, I have Buffalo, who went 3-4 in the preseason. They had a much better offseason than the Canadiens in my mind. They picked up Rasmus Dahlin as the first overall pick in the NHL draft. Carter Hutton, they signed him to help in goal. He had a great season last year. It'll be interesting to see how he does as a starter potentially. Then Casey Middlestan is another player that people are very excited for. Overall, this team doesn't look absolutely amazing, but the building blocks are definitely there for them to have a good run and to improve in the future. So I could see them finishing as high as 5th, but I can't see them finishing much higher than that. In 5th, I have the Detroit Red Wings. They have a good group, but they lost Zetterberg. Zadina was sent down to the minors, and so did Joe Veleno was sent down there as well. So odds are they won't have too much better of a season than they did last year. I don't really have a ton to say about the Red Wings, so let's go ahead and move on to who I think will finish 4th this year, which is the Florida Panthers. And I do think that they will make the playoffs. They went 3-4 in the preseason. Panthers had a pretty good team last year. They went on a really solid run, and I think they would have made the playoffs if they're in the West, if I remember right. They added Mike Hoffman, who's a good player. And when you look at their offensive stats for the top 6, it's crazy how many goals and points they have between them last year. So I think they'll probably get the first wild card spot in the East, but we'll see. In 3rd, I have the Boston Bruins, who went 5-1 in the preseason. They haven't changed a whole lot. They were a really solid team last year, and I would say that they would finish higher, but with the Lightning and the Maple Leafs in this division, the top end of the Atlantic is a pretty rough place to be at this point. In 2nd, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning, who went 4-3 in the preseason. They're a great team. They have Kucherov and Johnson, who are hit or miss for the start of the season, but they'll be fine up until they get back, and once they're back, they'll do great. They didn't make a ton of moves in the offseason, but they will do well. They could finish 1st depending on a few things going well or wrong with the number 1 team, who is the Toronto Maple Leafs. I have them finishing 1st. They added Tavares. They might have the best forward group in the league. The only question is Nylander, getting his contract settled, and if their team can live up to the hype. They look great in the preseason, 6-2. They had a great power play percentage. So realistically, they look like the front runners in this division. You, of course, have the same things that everyone's always worried about with their team in the regular season, which is people underperforming, injuries, things like that. But every team has to worry about that kind of stuff. If things like that don't go crazy wrong for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I can't see them finishing lower than 2nd in their division. Now on to the Metropolitan Division. The New York Rangers are 8th in my mind. They traded a lot of people at the trade deadline last year. There isn't a lot of people thinking they're going to do much this year. They did go 3-2 in the offseason, but we'll see if that translates to the regular season. Odds are it won't. The New York Islanders, I have them finishing 7th. They didn't do well last year, and they lost Tavares. They do have Barry Trotz coming in, and they had a decent offseason, 5-3, but it would be a big surprise to see them do much better than 7th in the division. It really all depends on how much Barry Trotz can get out of these guys, at least in my mind. They could finish as high as probably 6th, I think. They might be able to move up 1 spot, but I can't see them moving much higher. In 6th, I have the Carolina Hurricanes, who went 5-0 in the preseason. They had some interesting movement, especially with Calgary. There was a lot of movement between them and Calgary in the offseason. They picked up Dougie Hamilton, who had the most goals of any defenseman last year. At least he was tied for most goals of any defenseman last year. They lost Skinner. But the most important thing they did in the offseason is deciding that they were going to wear Whalers gear for a few games this year, so nothing else really matters as far as I'm concerned. That's really the only thing I want from the Carolina Hurricanes is some Whalers stuff. Fifth, I have the New Jersey Devils. They didn't play a lot this preseason. I didn't notice that, but I looked at the preseason numbers, and they were listed as 1-2. They had a decent season last year. The most important thing in my mind is going to be getting contributions from other people other than Taylor Hall. He had 41 more points than any of the other players on the Devils. I think that they'll miss the playoffs. They could make it into the 4th spot here and make the playoffs. They seem about on par with the next team, which is the Columbus Blue Jackets, who I have 4th. They went 3-5 in the preseason. I think they'll make the playoffs. I don't have a ton to say about the Blue Jackets. They're one of those teams I don't expect a ton from, but they won't be bad. They could move down to 5th. They seem pretty interchangeable with the Devils in my mind. In 3rd, I have the Flyers. Now, I would love to put the Flyers higher, and I think they are a better team than people give them credit for, but based off of last season and past few seasons, I should say, and how these other two teams are going to react to the postseason last year, I have them in 3rd for now. In 2nd, I have the Caps. They're going to be hyped up for winning the Cup, but they played more hockey than they ever have before, and who knows how much partying they did in this offseason. They could be number 1, they could be number 3. It's really hard to tell how this team is going to react to winning the Cup after losing for so long. They could use that as motivation to try and repeat, or they could be tired. So it'll be interesting to see that. And in 1st, even though I hate to say it, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think they're going to be well rested. I think they're going to be mad. They have gone 2-3 in the preseason, but they had more time off than they've had in years. So they might be able to really come out of the gate strong and put up some great numbers. It'll be very interesting to see how they react to not being the champion after 2 years and losing in the 2nd round to the Capitals, guys that they've beaten a lot. Either way, guys, that wraps up my season preview for your Eastern Conference. I'll be doing a separate video that'll come out tomorrow for the Western Conference. I just didn't want to put out really long videos for these. Figured it'd be better off to split it, do 2 shorter videos. But I do want to thank you for watching. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, check out the other videos that I've posted. I've done some season previews for teams. I haven't gotten all the way through them because those things take forever, the way that I do them. And we're moving into the regular season, so I want to do some regular season stuff. But this is Less Than 3 Hockey, and thank you so much for watching.